Yo, what's good, Waterway family? It's your boy Vino, and we are here with a very, very special guest today. We do have Omar Fateh, Senator Omar Fateh, in the building. Did I say
Thank
your
you.
name correctly?
Yeah, Fateh is perfect. Yeah.
Fateh.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you so
Omar
much.
Fateh, and then I'm here with my co-host Ricky. You
Yes.
already know the waves.
Mhm.
I'm really glad that you're here,
Thank you.
Omar. I really do appreciate you coming and giving us the time here. Um, we're in very interesting times. I think you might agree, both just in the world in general, but also politically. What are your thoughts kind of on what this current political climate is looking like?
It's a lot. But first, I want to say thank you both for giving me the opportunity
Of
to join
course.
you this morning. It means a lot to me. There's a few directions I can go with that. Number one, we have a hostile federal government right now, with not only Trump in office, but he has a trifecta. He has both the White House and both chambers of Congress. He has the House and the Senate,
Mhm.
and on top of that, he also has a Supreme Court that's willing to do whatever he wants. And that's one of the main reasons why we're seeing a lot of those unconstitutional violations and acts continue throughout the country in different cities, like folks getting picked up in the middle of the street and things like that. And so, a couple of things to that. Number one, uh, how did Trump first get elected in the first place? Yes, he ran on some hateful rhetoric. Yes, there is an element of like nationalism within his own campaign and even now within his own cabinet. But he also ran on affordability and talking about the struggles that people have, the everyday people, right?
Mhm.
And so that I think that's kind of why we saw like a swing to the right in the 2024 election. But now you see like a lot of progressives running on that same populist message of affordability, like we saw in New York City, for example, with
Mhm.
Zohran. And so, was Trump lying when he was talking about that? Of course he was, right?
Yep.
He was just saying what he thought voters wanted to hear. But that speaks to the everyday voter that is seeking more authentic, sincere leadership around who's going to tackle the everyday needs, the needs of the everyday person. And so, as a candidate, as a senator, as a member of the DFL, my goal has always been for the party to not abandon working class people, because that's really the way we fight back and continue to serve.
For sure. For sure. I guess I want to start off by figuring out who is Omar Fateh.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up? What school did you go
Yeah.
to?
So I was born in Washington, D.C., and I was raised in Virginia. I'm the son of immigrants, both my parents from Somalia.
Mhm.
My dad came in the early 60s and my mom came in the 70s. My dad came on a college scholarship in 1963, and he was placed in Montana State University in Bozeman, Montana.
Wow.
And at that time, he was the only African American in his college.
Wow.
And I think also there was not a single African American family in Bozeman, Montana at that time, right? And that was 1963.
Wow.
And so he has a lot of stories that he told me that I carry with me around about that time. I think that year, 1963, was the same year also in which George Wallace had that famous speech, segregation now, segregation tomorrow,
Mhm.
segregation forever, right?
Yep.
And so, yes, that's part of our history, but it wasn't like 100 years ago, 200 years ago. It was just, that's pretty recent.
Yeah.
And so, my mom came in the 70s. They got married in New York. Fast forward, I was born in Washington, D.C. I was raised in Virginia. I went to school in Virginia. I graduated with a master's, a bachelor's and a master's in public administration from George Mason University, which is in Fairfax, Virginia. And then shortly after completing my master's, I got a job offer with the city of Minneapolis, actually.
Wow.
And so that kind of brought me out here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, what was high school like for young Omar? Did you play sports? Like, what were your interests at that time?
Yeah, so I did play a lot of basketball. I played soccer, but I didn't play like organized sports. Just play for fun, hanging out a lot. I wasn't really a focused student back then.
Mhm.
Really not focused on my studies. Uh, I think I buckled down and got more serious after I graduated, after high school.
Wow.
But I was interested always in that. I used to go to summer camps
Mhm.
almost every summer, or pretty much every summer as a child. with my siblings. I'm the fifth out of six kids, so it was a pretty big family,
Wow. Wow.
and three boys, three girls. And so always having that competition between me and my brothers,
Yeah.
who are always much bigger and stronger than me, in basketball and football, never taking it easy on me.
That's an
And so
interesting dynamic for
absolutely,
sure.
absolutely, absolutely. And so um, those are the kind of things I bring up with myself because as a senator,
Mhm.
with my own experiences on the East Coast, I was thinking about how we can improve, how we can not only service, but to better provide opportunities for our young people,
Mhm.
whether that's youth jobs or youth programming. Because not only are they are our future, but if we don't take care of them and invest in them, that's going to be a lost generation
Yeah.
in terms of opportunity, economic opportunity, school opportunity. And so uh, I want to be able to provide those same opportunities.
For sure. I mean, you have reached a large potential
Yeah.
in the political world. What was your turning point? Because I know you just said like, "Hey, I was kind of slacking in high
Yeah.
school a little bit," but what was your turning point that got you into politics?
I always was interested in politics, even when I wasn't serious in school about like national level politics.
Mhm.
I remember my senior year in high school, we got assigned on a project in which we were placed on campaigns. And if I remember correctly, we took like a political quiz, and then we got assigned like on a campaign. Uh, and the campaign I got assigned went against my beliefs. It was like a Republican
Mm.
campaign, right?
Mhm.
And so seeing that, it was a guy running for county attorney. And then seeing that, it really opened my eyes to like, wait, we focus here on the president and both chambers of Congress, but a lot of the stuff that impacts our day-to-day life are actually like the local races,
Yeah.
the county attorney, the county commissioners, the city councils, and all of that.
Mhm.
And seeing like some of the hateful rhetoric that he was talking about, uh, and having to go follow that campaign.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think I was a good ambassador for the campaign because it was not really like I didn't
It
agree with
wasn't
him
your
at all.
vibe.
It was not my vibe at all. But it was a big learning experience, and that's something that I carried with me on
For sure.
throughout college. And one of the reasons why I wanted to engage better in politics because there's just so many people that are disconnected from what happens locally.
Yeah.
Even right now, when I'm canvassing, door knocking, phone banking, talking
Mhm.
to voters, sometimes they know, yeah, the election's in November, but they don't know like early voting already started, for
Yeah.
example, or what day the election is happening, or who even is on the ballot at all,
Mhm.
and a whole host of races. And so, uh, m- those are the kind of things I try to carry on with me.
For sure. Why do you think there is that disconnect with the youth in a lot of local politics?
A couple of reasons I would say. Number one, there's always a perception of like no matter who gets elected, things are staying the same no matter what, right?
Mhm.
And like whether it's Democrats or Republicans, both sides don't represent me. Uh, we're having the same issues being talked about every single election. What's going to happen this time differently?
Mhm.
Uh, Also, just for young people, there's not a reason to. There's not a reason for them to engage
Mhm.
that piques their interest. Like, what are we speaking about to them that will bring them in
Yeah.
to the political fold. And what I mean by that, we got to speak towards the issues that matter to them, and as not only as a candidate but as elected officials.
Mhm.
I remember when I got selected as the chair of the Senate Higher Education Committee. One of the bigger things that was important to me was bringing our students into the conversation because historically at the Capitol, there's something called budget targets where each committee gets a set amount of money to
Mhm.
spend on their committee for housing, for jobs, for higher ed, for human services, so on. Historically, in higher ed, people will just get their pot of money and then just spend it on operations and maintenance for each campus or for the universities.
Yeah.
But I knew that wasn't working, so I brought in the students. What are things that are important to you? They said affordability. They said campus hunger and mental health. And so we literally were able to bring them into those conversations. We even had a student day. We had the first ever student day so students can come testify in the committee talking about their issues. And then they led on things like the North South Promise, which was tuition-free college for working families. And so when you engage with them and actually ask them, what are the issues that are important to you? That's the way you can bring them in, not only in the organizing space, but to actually pass meaningful legislation.
For sure. You're currently a state senator
Yeah,
representing District 62, correct?
correct.
And that's South
South
Minneapolis, right?
Minneapolis. Yep.
Okay. What elements of your background are you hoping to use to kind of shape how you will lead as a mayor?
Yeah, I'll say that same collaborative approach. And so I have very deep differences with the mayor in terms of policy, whether it comes from policing, the way we're dealing with encampments, uh, economic opportunity for everyone in the city. But what I also heard loud and clear from residents is that what's equally important to good policy are good relationships,
Mhm.
and you cannot have one without the other.
For
And
sure.
I think that's really what's missing right now. We've built a broad coalition from young people to immigrants to folks that are seniors who have been longtime DFL members that are fed up with the process and so on, transit riders. And so uh, we're bringing all of that broad coalition with us. And by the way, we're not only endorsed by progressives at the Capitol, but by Blue Dog Democrats to show that despite differences, we can work and get along with everyone. And so people really are hungry, not just for authentic leadership, not just for good policy, but to heal our city in terms of some of the toxicity.
Mhm.
Because what we're hearing from people and what we see from the news and also city council is that the mayor seems to have an adversarial relationship with city council. And when you don't get along with them, it's hard to pass things.
Yeah,
But I would argue also that it extends to the county commissioners and to our state Minneapolis delegation. Minneapolis delegation meaning our state representatives and state senators that represent us at the Capitol from Minneapolis.
for sure.
And that's why the mayor doesn't have a single county commissioner endorsing him. He doesn't have a single Minneapolis delegation member endorsing him. And
Wow.
when you have that level of disconnect from multiple jurisdictions, there's no way you can pass meaningful ordinances. There's no way you can provide the adequate amount of funding and resources for our city when you're isolated in that way.
Yep.
And that's something that I can bring. I have the experience working cross jurisdictionally, passing meaningful legislation with all levels of government to make sure we're going to succeed. Because again, having the federal government that we have right now, that's going to threaten to cut off funding for cities that they deem to be oppositional. Now more than ever, we got to lock arms
For
with our
sure.
county partners, with our city, with our state to make up for whatever gap in funding that's going to come down the pike. And that's what I strongly believe I can bring.
For sure. For sure. I know as a I am a recipient of the North Star Promise. I'm currently
Awesome.
going to school still. And so it's great that you have brought that to the table.
Thank you.
What other legislation are you currently championing, or even have you brought to the table that's changed our environment as Minnesota residents?
Yeah, so there's a couple of them. I remember my first year in office, we were in the minority. The Republicans were in charge of the Senate.
Right.
And one of the bigger issues that we campaigned on and folks came to my office about was addiction and opioid related deaths that were occurring a lot in South Minneapolis, especially, which is also a statewide and a nationwide issue. And there was a young person that came to my office who spoke about their brother that passed away from a fentanyl overdose. I think he had I think an injury, back injury, was self-medicating with pills that were given from a friend. I think there might have been some insurance issues that were going on, like many Americans have, and took the pills not knowing that it was laced with fentanyl. And so that was an accidental, tragic death that could have been prevented, right?
Yeah.
And so we went to work on something called the legalization of fentanyl testing strips so that when folks are taking any of these things, they can at least test it first.
Yeah.
And our main goal is to always, at a minimum, keep people alive. And that was one of the selling points I was having
Yeah.
with my Republican colleagues. And the idea, I guess, in the past was that if you had the fentanyl testing strips, then you had the drugs, and the drugs were obviously illegal. And
Mhm.
so we wanted to move away from the criminalization of the issue. And so we drafted legislation with the constituent. Uh, we had a lot of ups and downs. There's times when we thought it wouldn't get passed, but I spent a lot of time on the Republican side of the building,
Mhm.
talking to them, selling it. Hey, you're pro-life. This is a way to keep people alive, right?
Mhm.
And so one of the senators, her name was Julie Rosen, really helped me, met with me in my office. We got it across the finish line and it passed,
Yeah.
thankfully. And so that wouldn't have happened if I just said, you know what, Republicans are in charge. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do here, which is easy to do in the Capitol, and it happens more often than not, right?
Mhm.
And so I spent a lot of time engaging with them, talking to them, getting it passed. Fast forward a year later, the Star Tribune had an article that had a report about Hennepin County, stating that in the first year, 1 million testing strips were given out.
Wow.
So that's life saving, 1 million. Imagine how many lives could have been that were saved by that.
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of work that is meaningful and transformational and life saving. And it's not these grand ideas like Medicare for all or like college free tuition for everyone or all that, but still very meaningful work that
Mhm.
keeps people alive. And I think that's the kind of vision that I want to bring with me to the Capitol.
For sure. Have you ever made any mistakes as a legislator, and kind of what are they, or how did you learn from them?
Mm, yeah, I would say uh, earlier on, communication is very a very, I'll say, important tool to passing legislation, not just with your caucus, but with the other side as well, Republicans.
Yep.
And even whether you're in the minority or you're in the majority, whether whoever side is in charge, I think that's important uh, uh, to get across because when that communication isn't occurring and there's a breakdown in trust, that's when the things like the filibustering happens where they just want to be like, well, you're not listening to me, to hell with this. We're going to block everything.
Mhm.
And so I quickly learned that we need to engage with them.
Mhm.
And so this past session, as the chair of the Senate Higher Education Committee, I learned from that. So what I did was I brought in Republicans from the committee that I'm the chair of every week into my office, and we sat down and talked about what the agenda is going to be for the week, what bills that they're interested in, what bills I want to bring forth, maybe having them tweak some of my bills also.
Mhm.
There are times when even they say, you know what, we're not there yet, but we feel like we can get to an agreement on this bill. And I actually pulled it off the agenda and waited till later on, you know? And
Mhm.
so those are things in which I carry with me because I could have easily said, no, I'm going to just bulldoze whatever we want. We're
Yeah.
the Democrats, we're in charge, we're going to do that. And I think that approach really was received well and was appreciated because we had a very good year in the committee. It wasn't like we weren't fighting each other, arguing with each other, stalling progress.
Mhm.
Yes, there were strong disagreements, but they were respectful, at least respectful about it, and they weren't trying to have the similar delay tactics that we see usually in other areas. And at the end of the year, if I remember correctly, I believe our omnibus bill means the bills that are the collection of bills that were put together for
Mhm.
each committee at the end of the year.
Mhm.
For our committee, actually had the least amount of amendments on the floor compared to all the other ones. And I believe we were if I remember correctly, either first or second. I believe uh, the fastest bill that got passed off the floor also. And that was
Wow.
because they didn't want to filibuster it or stall it or do a lot of amendments on it because throughout the entire session, we were keeping them up to date on what was going on.
Yeah.
And so uh, you can have strong disagreements with people, but having that line of communication uh, does wonders in terms of building that good relationship.
For sure. For sure. And so the Democrats are the majority in the Minnesota Senate?
In the Senate, they're the majority, yeah. In the
Okay.
House, it was split.
It is. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. So collaboration is still needed, although you guys are the majority technically, right?
Absolutely. The first 2 years, 2023, 2024, we had all three. We had the governorship, we had the House, and the Senate.
Okay.
And then last year, we had a split House.
House. Does that affect things a lot, or?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, and things were kind of chaotic on the House side, especially.
Mhm.
But then also we had committees that were split in terms of having two chairs. So
Mm.
because it was 67, 67, there was one Democratic chair and one Republican chair for each committee as well, and so that led to better
Yeah.
collaboration on that side, or more collaboration on that side.
For sure, for sure. What was the turning point for you deciding to run as mayor? How did you get
Yeah.
to this point?
So as a senator, I've heard a lot from constituents in my office and in coffee meetings and office hours that were in community office hours as well about a whole host of issues that were more local, not state level. Things like when I call 911, the police aren't showing up, or when I call 911, calls are getting dropped, or I'm not happy with the idea of encampments just being bulldozed with no plan of actually housing people, because we know bulldozing encampments block by block does not house people.
Mhm.
And I can go on and on and on. And so there was just a collection of a whole host of issues that uh, needs to be addressed at the city level. And I love the city. I love the people of the city. I've seen firsthand our neighbors, despite all the struggles and challenges they're facing, they still show up to city hall, show up to the capitol, show up to committee hearings, show up to neighborhood meetings, fighting for the vision of their city that they want and for their kids as well. And so all that triggered kind of me to um, pursue this mayoral run. And I learned a lot on this race also about the issues that are really important to people, from public safety to encampments to small business support to, and I said earlier, just people wanting better, our mayor to better interact with city council, not have an adversarial relationship. And so those are all the things that kind of pushed me to run.
For sure, for sure. What does the first 100 days of Omar Fateh in office look like?
Well, the first thing that has to happen is that there has to be meaningful engagement with all 13 city council members, and build that relationship, build that level of trust. Again, disagreement is healthy. You can disagree with folks, but not assuming ill intent of each other when you have a disagreements, and also understanding that there are 13 city council members and they're the duly elected council members and they represent their wards and they're the connection to their ward. I think that want to build that relationship with them.
Mhm.
Um, Also, we have to make sure that we are immediately putting in place a public safety system that works for everyone
Mhm.
in terms of both police accountability and in terms of responsiveness. We have to put together and implement a plan around how we are engaging with our unhoused neighbors and ending the cycle of just bulldozing encampments.
Mhm.
And how do we address the affordability situation in the city also?
Mhm.
And so those are all things, just a few things that I want to hopefully get addressed in the first in the first 100 days. But again, everything links back to being able to partner with and work with everyone else, because you cannot do it alone.
For sure, for sure. And I like that stance a lot because I think a lot of people just expect, hey, you're the mayor, you're supposed to change everything. And it's not necessarily possible by yourself. So if let's say you do endure a lot of dissident between different areas of the city, whether that's like the commissioners or the council,
Mhm.
how do you expect to get things done in that sense?
So I think it's important, and this is what's missing also. I think what's important is that when you're formulating policy, you do so with the most amount of stakeholders as possible, with
Uh,
city council members, with community, with people that are going to be directly impacted, rather than pursuing something and then explaining it later.
mm,
And I think that's critical and that's key, because people don't want to be blindsided, and
mhm.
people don't want to be talked to or talked about. They want to be engaged with.
Yep.
And so I think that's the way that I approach my politics and the way I approach governing,
Mhm.
is that I bring people on along for the ride, and I say, this is the vision that we have. help me build out the steps A to Z, how we can do this together. Are there going to be disagreements in certain times? 100% obviously there will be. But it's important for the mayor to remain engaged with the elected officials, to be engaged in community, having town halls and meetings within all 13 wards, selling that vision and talking about that vision, but also getting educated by the community, because sometimes you're not going to have it right. Sometimes you're going to be wrong. And I think that's important. As senator, I'm not ashamed to admit there's times where I pursued something and uh, I wasn't 100% correct, and then the legislation had to get tweaked, and having people better educate me on why things need to get changed and things like that. I think that's important rather than taking the my way or the highway approach, pursuing something and then explaining it later. And I think that's what people want to see as well.
Yeah, for sure. What are some key indicators that if you do become mayor, that we as the people, what are key indicators that we know that what you're saying is working, I guess?
Yeah, a few things. Not having such a strong division that's very public between the mayor and city council, or the mayor or any elected officials. Seeing that we're having encampments being cleared by not bulldozing them, but by actively housing them and providing them with treatment and wraparound services, and working with the county on that. Because the county does have the formula. They did, for example, they ended veterans homelessness in Hennepin County. And we
Wow.
know that the direct approach of providing one-on-one services, ongoing support, housing, that's a lot. All that is the key, right?
Mhm.
And so, making sure that people feel safer in community, uh, making sure that our students and our young people and our seniors are not being left behind, having a city that's more affordable, renters being protected. Uh, all of that is the way I think are measures of success for our city. But again, throughout the process in engaging with people, there are going to be issues that prop up that perhaps no candidate is talking about right now, that
Mhm.
you learn about uh, along the ride as well.
For sure.
And those need to be addressed also as we get to it.
For sure. Um, I know that there's been a lot of talk on public safety, especially surrounding your campaign.
Yeah.
In 2020, your district did go through the awful death of George Floyd.
Yeah.
How is that whole entire situation, even
Mm,
just from the initial incident to even like the protests, like how has that affected you and how you lead
mm,
as a senator? And how will that
uh,
also affect you in the future as a mayor to leading with public safety in mind?
absolutely. And not just the district I represent, but the city of Minneapolis, I think as a whole, has been through a lot. Through the COVID-19 pandemic, through the torture and murder of George Floyd, as you mentioned, through a whole host of issues. And what we found is that people are just frustrated and fed up with a system that lacks accountability, in terms of public safety, but in terms of governing as well. In terms of the mayoral administration, uh, people feel that their voices are being left out, uh, especially again in terms of public safety. And when we talk about uh, how we can better improve the system, our public safety system, what we envision is a system in which when you call 911, you get the right call, the appropriate response at the right time,
Mhm,
meaning you don't need an officer at every single phone call
mhm,
to respond to every single call. And I'll say two things to that. Number one, we do have two consent decrees we need to implement, both state and federal, around the police accountability piece. But number two, uh, we had a city report that showed that nearly half of 911 calls that for MPD can actually be diverted away from police, meaning they don't need to have the respond to every call. Uh, and we can beef up our alternatives like BCR, behavioral crisis response, like mental health workers. And that clicks well with what I've heard at the Capitol. We've had law enforcement from different jurisdictions say that we cannot respond to every call. We need help. We're being stretched out thin. So it's just not a us policy. It's actually law enforcement also
mhm,
asking for that help, because when we when we release nearly half of their caseload and they're not being stretched out so thin,
Yeah.
then they can focus on violent crime. They can focus on the carjackings, the shootings,
Yeah.
the drug trafficking, the human trafficking, clearing the backlog of cases that have long gone untouched and unsolved. Things like human trafficking and rape and murder and things like that. And those are the things that people really want to see addressed.
Yeah.
And so when you don't have an officer responding to every call, for example, if there's like a 12-year-old child that's autistic, that's having like a behavioral issue going
Mhm.
on with family, you don't need armed officers showing up to that scene, right?
No,
That's a call that they're not needed at.
for sure.
And so that's the system in which we envision
Mhm.
that's better, more strategic, and works for everyone. I know that the mayor and his team like to talk about, well, if they get elected, they want to abolish the police and all that. That's completely false. That's not going to happen.
Yeah,
In fact, even if all 13 council members and the mayor today voted to get rid of police, state law wouldn't allow that. And so
for
it's a
sure.
fake argument.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. I think that that's kind of like a bit of the stigma that
Yeah.
kind of waves over a lot of your campaign. And I mean, that could just be from false advertising. I mean, from what you've
Mm,
just explained, it
yeah.
doesn't sound like you're trying to abolish the police at all by any means. But do you think that there's also a staffing issue in terms of the police department? Are there just not enough officers and to actually handle all of these crimes that are going on currently? And how can we tackle that? Is there a way to add more police officers? Is there incentives or better training that
Yeah.
they agree with, you know?
I think a couple of things. Number one, we need to be more strategic around the calls in which officers are engaging with right now.
Mhm.
Because with the staff level we have right now, they're saying they're being stretched out too thin.
Yeah.
And if we can take nearly half of the workload off their plate, that's a huge first step. But number two, I believe that no matter how many officers you add on the force, uh, it's not going to deal with crime or safety in the adequate way that we believe it will,
Mhm.
because the city and the mayor has been largely ignoring the fundamental issues that lead to crime, which is poverty, which is low wages, which is uh, strengthening our public school system, which is not having corporate polluters pollute our black and brown neighborhoods,
Mhm.
which is making sure that people are not being evicted and protecting our renters, which is making sure that we have youth programming and youth jobs. And so we need to focus on the root causes and identifying how the city can be better prepared and dealing with the basic needs of people,
Mhm.
rather than saying that we're not going to provide this help, but we're just going to throw officers at the solution every single time. We need to take a more proactive approach
Mhm.
and making sure that the needs of the people are better addressed.
For sure. Um, on the end of policing, in the federal side, there's a lot of drama with ICE in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah.
Um, where I know that at least from what I've seen and read, I know that you guys are against ICE. Your campaign is
Yeah.
against ICE, and the cooperation with ICE is not something that
Yeah.
we see in your campaign's future.
Yeah.
How do you see the pressures from potentially even like the federal
Mm.
government, the higher ups, the Trumps and
Yeah.
stuff like that? If they're forcing this on the city, how do you combat that?
A couple of things. Number one, we saw a situation on June 3rd on Lake and Bloomington
Mhm.
in the district that I represent in South Minneapolis, that there was a strategic failure on the part of the city.
Mhm.
We had ICE and multiple federal agents show up on the scene, and there was a level of anxiety and chaos that was caused by uh, not only having ICE being there, but the lack of communication by the mayor's office and MPD, the chief, around what's going on, and that letting people know that ICE is actually in the city.
Mhm.
And in fact, myself, multiple elected officials at the state and city level, we didn't even hear about the situation from the city. We heard about it from some of the boots on the ground organizations
Wow.
that were hearing about what's happening, that saw what happened, and then reported it back to everyone else. And so what we learned from the city auditor's office is that we need to strengthen our separation ordinance. We cannot have we need to have better communication between the mayor and the chief, and also the city council members, so that whenever we know something's coming down the pike, that city council is alerted immediately, because they're the connection point to community, and they can articulate that and disseminate that information to folks. I think that's really important. Number two, we really have to work really hard to better work with some of those boots on the ground organizations that I just spoke about right now, that are already providing like the know your rights training, legal counseling, multilingual services. They're the ones that are finding out a lot of times what's happening on the ground, because the city cannot do it alone. And we need to lock arms with our, not just cross jurisdictionally, but with these organizations as well. Because things are scary, and it's going to get scary as well.
Yeah.
As the chair of the Senate Higher Education Committee, I've seen firsthand our students, especially undocumented students, getting picked up by ICE, right? Sometimes on campus, middle of the night. And so their lawyers not knowing where they're being detained, the families not knowing where they're being detained. Of course, obviously, again, this is unconstitutional. This shouldn't be happening. But we have a president that's going to do whatever he wants.
Right.
And it's scary for, when I talk to college and university presidents, they're scared of publicly providing support to these students out of fear of losing funding, saying that, well, if I do this, then the federal government's going to drop the hammer on us, right? And so we're in a situation right now with our college campuses and all levels of government, in which the federal government and Trump is putting us in a choice where you either sacrifice your values or you lose funding. And as a mayoral candidate and as a senator, I'm saying that under any circumstance, we cannot sacrifice our values and throw our most marginalized communities under the bus. And so that includes not allowing MPD to collaborate with ICE. Because, by the way, we saw a few weeks ago, there was a leak publicly that showed ICE emailing the police chief saying, "Thank you for assisting us in evacuating or leaving the scene and providing that escort services." And so I think that under any circumstance, whether it's crowd control, whether it's escorting them out, whatever, MPD should never, ever collaborate with ICE. And those are some of the things that we've been talking about on the campaign.
For sure. And even just kind of going into like the schools being defunded, the University of Minnesota took a bunch of cuts and also had to lay off a lot of people. There's a lot more people than now involved in issue like this that may not even be involved or may not have an opinion or may not be fighting for that in general. What do you say to those families, like especially like professors who've maybe lost their jobs this year and don't have really any certainty because the U of M might not have, given in to what ICE wants?
And that's why it's really critical for the state to step up and provide the funding that's needed to make up for the gap in which whatever the federal government cuts off. Is it a large amount of money? Yes. But I think there's creative solutions in which we can find ways to provide that funding, because it's not just around the operations and maintenance of the campuses, but there's a lot of critical work like research funding getting cut, right? For around cancer and other diseases, in which we all have family members or know someone that's affected by these diseases in which cures are being researched on by these important institutions. And so I think that it's important for our leadership at the state level to, again, lock arms with our college campuses and college presidents to find those creative solutions in which we're going to make up for the gap in funding, so that we're not sacrificing our values and not sacrificing our students. because that's not a precedent that we want to set
For
as a
sure.
state.
For sure. And on the issue of homelessness, it's a
Mm,
really, I think it's kind of ramped up in the past 4 or 5 years. We are seeing things that we haven't seen in Minneapolis. I
yeah,
think Rick and I have lived in Minneapolis for I know he just moved, but we've lived in Minneapolis for the past 6 years,
yeah,
6, 7 years. And there's been a lot of there's been a lot of changes along the way. We're seeing a lot more of these encampments, like
mm,
even Lake Street, like you are kind of seeing once you get off that exit off 35W,
yeah,
you're seeing all the people lined up.
yeah,
um how do we solve this? How do we
yeah,
combat
yeah,
this? I know that
yeah,
we don't want to just sweep and bulldoze
yeah,
people out of the way, but how do we get
yeah.
people into these proper areas that they need to be at to get better?
Exactly. That's a very good question. And so, um, none of us want encampments, right? Um, I don't want it. You all don't want it. People that are unhoused don't want it.
Mhm.
But it's the reality we're gonna live in unless we address it by providing long-term solutions, not just short-term feel-good band-aids fixes.
Mhm.
And so we have a mayor that campaigned in 2017 when he first ran for mayor, saying that he's going to end homelessness within 5 years. But right now, there are more unhoused neighbors than when he first took office. And so that's a failure.
Mhm.
And we know that, again, bulldozing our unhoused neighbors block by block does not house them. So we need to do a few things. Number one, we need to take a housing first approach and provide housing whenever possible for them, but also providing wraparound services and providing that individualized support person by person. We know that we need to move back the response around homelessness from regulatory services back into health because we know it's a public health crisis
Mhm.
and it doesn't belong in regulatory services, and that shows you the way in which the mayor is pursuing this is just wrong.
For sure.
And so we want to move it back into health also because, again, it is a public health crisis. We know that there are spreads of infectious diseases within our encampments also,
Mhm.
like syphilis and hepatitis and HIV and so on.
Mhm.
That's why we need to have better sanitation. We need to have sanitary stations. We need to have safe needle disposals. We need to have case workers, county and city, to go in and to provide the help needed in a provide a good faith effort.
Mhm.
Because when I spoke to folks on the ground, when I went to these encampments, when I talked to people, what I hear all the time is that city staff would go in and they'd say, "We're gonna bulldoze your encampments, but here are these resources you have." And
Mhm.
they take it and they're like, "Wait, these shelter beds, there's no beds in the shelter, and these numbers don't work."
Yeah.
It's not a good faith effort. They're just saying, "Here you go, good luck."
Mhm.
They get their social security cards thrown away, their driver's licenses thrown away,
Mhm.
their belongings. We had when one of the encampments got cleared a few weeks ago, we had a mother that was homeless say that her child's ashes also got thrown away, and that's heartbreaking. That should never happen, right?
Mhm.
And so these are all things that are happening. And by the way, it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars every time you do this.
Yeah.
And so we need to do it taking a housing first approach. We need to provide the solutions I just laid out. We need to lock arms with our county and state to provide funding also for more shelter support, to housing support. I want to help build more tiny homes
Mhm.
with the county, with the city, so that we can provide not just housing, but we know where they're going to be at to provide the wraparound services for them. Again, we can partner with the county because they know the formula also in ending veterans homelessness.
Yeah.
There's a whole host of ways in which we can address this in a long term way. But unfortunately, there is no plan currently by the mayor, and there's no intent to have a plan either.
Yeah.
And so, what I hear from neighbors and what I hear from folks is that they're upset, and
Yeah.
rightfully so. I've had a mother in Phillips neighborhood, for example, tell me that I can't have my 6-year-old play in the front yard without picking up a needle, right? And that shouldn't be happening. And so it's unfair to our unhoused neighbors, it's unfair to our neighbors, it's unfair to our city. We just need a mayor that's willing to put in the work to address this in a long term way.
For sure.
I'm curious when when you take a homeless person off the streets and put them in housing, let's say, is there like a vetting process of like maybe like people that are addicted to drugs that are homeless, or people that just don't have the money that are homeless that would love to live in a a homeless shelter or housing or whatever? And is there an idea of we're going to put the people that maybe aren't drug addicts in better neighborhoods around that can maybe be closer to kids or whatever versus the ones that are homeless because of drugs, they need to go in maybe places that are more, maybe like a downtown where there isn't kids running around and
Mhm.
playing, or and not as many schools within a certain mile radius. And then, maybe that would help them also enjoy living in their homeless encampment versus I don't want to sleep in the same room next to someone that's,
Yeah.
maybe a little crazy in the head. I'm just homeless because financial reasons or whatever it may be.
That's a very good question, and that's why it's important to beef up our support at the city level with more staff and partner with the county, because we need to provide those individualized plans. Everyone has a unique story and unique situation in which why they're experiencing homelessness, and we know that it's not enough to just be here are your keys, here's your place, you're on your own now. Those wraparound services are really important. For example, when I was visiting the Franklin and Minnehaha area and the Franklin Cedar Bridge and talking to some of our folks on Little Earth. That individualized approach is extremely important, but also they want to see us take an approach of traditional healing and traditional medicine, having culturally specific shelter for them, for
Mhm.
example. And so that's just one example. And so when we talk about the housing first approach, when we talk about providing these support and services, that's why, again, this individualized plans are important, because we're not going to just have that one size fits all model and push people into housing and set them up for failure. No, a lot of folks are going to need long term solution, long term wraparound services, long term help, entry into low barrier jobs, for example, so they can self sustain ongoing and so on. And so those are the stories that we've been learning along the way on the campaign.
For sure. Some of these encampments have become sites of violence. And let's say that we do increase sanitary conditions and we are even giving options out there to potential housing for the homeless. How do we At what point is there need for intervention? Where do you believe that, there's gotta be that line that has to be drawn?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a few things to that. Number one, the gun violence that we're seeing in our encampments are occurring under this current mayoral administration.
Mhm.
And if it's an issue with one encampment and you bulldoze them, it's going to be an issue again in the next encampment, and that's going to continue and continue and continue.
Yep.
And so, number two, the issue of gun violence isn't unique to encampments. We've learned that our schools aren't safe. We just
Mhm.
saw Annunciation
Yeah.
happen. We know our college campuses aren't safe. We know public spaces aren't safe. We got to deal with gun violence in a way in which we pass gun legislation to keep people safe.
Yeah.
But also, we have to make sure that we are keeping our unhoused neighbors safe in a way in which, while we're providing the services you laid out, that out of state bad actors in general, aren't don't have the opportunity to engage.
Yeah.
We can have boots on the ground organizations on there which are already doing good work. We can have violence interrupters in there. We can have the city partner with them to ensure that while we're housing people, people are being kept safe. There are ways to go about it, but again, this is largely a symptom of not just mental health and addiction, but also poverty. We know that one of the largest reason in which people experience homelessness are rental evictions. People are getting evicted. And
Yes.
so we need to keep people housed simply also. And so there's multiple ways in which we need to go about this
Yeah.
to ensure that people are kept safe. But gun violence is not unique to just our encampments.
Mm.
And it's easy in the media and for the mayor administration to say that, because those are folks that can't advocate for themselves, and it's the neighborhoods can be frustrated and say like, we don't want this anymore because it's not safe. There's gun violence, and it provides that protection for
Yeah.
him, right?
Mhm.
But the reality is that the failure lies on the mayor.
Right. Right. I really like your idea on tiny homes. I think that that's kind of a cool way to definitely work with people who are unsheltered. Um, what is your vision for that? I'm really curious because I'm thinking in my head, like, like the trailers, like the truck trailers, and they're like reconstructing them into houses. Like, what does that look like for you?
I think so. This is a great plan that's been also laid out by Council Member from Ward 9, Jason Chavez.
Okay.
It's going to take funding from a cross-jurisdictional approach also. There's public spaces that we can use at the city level to provide uh, tiny homes for folks so that we can engage with them. We can provide a space in which they can sleep, they can house themselves, and also they can get that ongoing support for the wraparound services, whether they need mental health support, whether they need support around treatment, drug treatment, whether they need support around um, access to employment, for example, and so on. Uh, and I think that's the right approach to take. But right now, the issue we have is that number one, we're not only sweeping and clearing out encampments,
Yeah,
but when you throw away like some of their key identifiers, like their birth certificates, like social security cards, it makes it harder for county and city workers to find them and identify them and
for
know where
sure.
they're at. And
Yeah.
so it's just making the problem even worse.
For sure. I mean, it definitely seems like it makes it harder for them to get out of the current hole that they are in by
Absolutely.
taking away a lot of these documents. But with having city workers, with having uh, a better approach to public safety, we're adding all of these different teams, and then if we're putting in tiny homes, where does the budget come from? How do we come up with the money as
Yeah.
a city or as a state for something like this?
Well, a few things. Number one, it's going to take being more strategic with our own budget and preventing wasteful spending.
Mhm,
And number two, also having that cross jurisdictional approach with our county and with our state.
mhm.
On the first side, for example, there's tens of millions of dollars we waste on police settlements alone, right? When they settle cases for abuse or killing or what have
Yeah,
you, or any violations. And so if we just implement some of the police accountability measures that we have. We make sure we have better training. We make sure we're not promoting officers that have problematic history. We can prevent the city from bankrupting ourselves, spending all that money on all these settlements, right? And I think that that's just one way in which we can save money on the budget side. But again, we're going to have to partner with our county and with our state to secure more funding to make sure it's possible. The city cannot go at this alone. And so that's the kind of approach I want to leverage my relationships that I currently have as state senator to bring in those dollars because I'm a Minneapolis delegation member. I'm friends with them. I'm friends with the chairs of major committees like human services, like housing, and so on. Um, Endorsed by Commissioner Angela Conley, also, who's a big supporter of a big ally in terms of finding solutions for our unhoused neighbors and not just sweeping them away. And so those are the situations in which I would approach.
for sure. Let's say in a perfect world that we have everything. All of these things come in. We have tiny
Yeah.
homes, we have the correct
Yeah.
policing, we have everything. How do you ensure that people will stay in these new facilities if maybe their lives aren't changing enough for them to maybe afford rent or
Yeah.
get into
Yeah.
better situations, but how do we ensure that they don't fall back into encampments or
Yeah.
any bad situations, I guess?
That's why the ongoing support is critical.
Mhm.
Not just having a one-off, you're housed, you're on your own. That's why data and keeping good reporting is extremely important as well,
Yeah.
so that you know what's working, what's not working. If there's certain situations that are not working, what can we tweak to ensure that folks are continued to be better serviced and um, continued on in the right direction.
Mhm.
Uh, that transparency is really important, so folks are up to date in the city about what's happening and why it's happening. We need to partner with the county to make sure that our reporting methods are accurate. I know, for example, the mayor at the beginning of the year said there are only 27 unhoused neighbors left or homeless folks left in the city. And we knew that that was false. There was
Yeah,
no way. And county data uh, proved that that was false as well.
mhm,
And so we need a mayor that's transparent and honest about the situation on hand and what's happening. But without good data collecting, without having good faith efforts in partnering with the county, without having the continued ongoing support rather than just the one-off solutions, none of that's possible.
for sure.
With in these tiny homes, like I mean, with the data collecting and making sure people don't go back and out homeless and in the streets and causing trouble, what do you like plan on putting like let's say like inside of these tiny homes as like amenities of living, right? In this day and age, like I think even just having a distraction with people's attention spans and
Mhm.
times, like I don't know, this might seem kind of funny, but putting in these tiny homes, like you putting like a PlayStation 5 in there, or a Apple TV
Yeah,
with the Netflix and Hulu, and a somewhat newer cell phone with Wi-Fi and
yeah,
stuff, like to where these people kind of can sit back and relax and kill 10 hours in their house and
yeah,
not have to feel like they need to be outside causing trouble, doing whatever they were doing, going to work, coming home, and knowing that they can come home to like a comfortable environment and not just, sitting at a blank wall
yeah,
and, just looking out the window and seeing the life that they left behind that they
yeah.
could easily walk out to.
Yeah, absolutely. And providing them with that, but also the city needs more public open spaces in which people can engage in a safe way and have recreational activities. But also, it's important for folks to have the opportunity to get employment and get good jobs and good paying jobs, working in the city, working in community. And I think what you mentioned, coupling with good paying jobs, providing the ongoing support for them, keeping up to date on their situation, their living conditions, um, not just again, pushing them in and saying you're on your own. I think those are the approaches that we need to take as a city that can be successful. And again, with the reporting piece as well, if something's not working, we can immediately identify what's not working and how we can improve and do better. But uh, the county, again, does have the formula. They've ended veterans' homelessness within the county, providing them with housing, providing them with the ongoing support and services that they need. And it's been proven to be a successful model.
How do you feel when people like Donald Trump take credit for things like ending veteran homelessness, and when they say things like, "Hey, I take care of the vets," and all this other things, but you know that these things are from more local policies. How do you feel about that? And how do you guys kind of combat that ideology,
Yeah.
if that makes sense?
That's why it's important to have ongoing dialogue with community.
Yeah,
Again, keeping them up to date on what you're doing, bringing them along in the decision making process, but also educating folks once things are passed to let them know this is what we worked on, this is what we got across the finish line, this is how we did it, this is how much it's going to cost, this is what we're expecting in terms of results. And it's up to us as legislators, uh, uh, elected officials, city, county, state, to provide that information to community to let them know what's going on, because our jobs don't end when you pass legislation. It's not just we're going to work with you to pass this. We pass it. We're good to go.
mhm,
Um, you have to work with community to pass it, and then work on educating folks on what you've also gotten passed as well. And I
for
think that
sure.
that piece is really important. Otherwise,
Yeah.
the narrative can be taken.
Yeah, because you are the first person that I've ever heard say that we have ended veteran homelessness
Yeah.
here, and I mean that's amazing, and it
Yeah.
definitely I think gives an optimistic future towards taking care of our homeless neighbors here
Absolutely.
as well. Um, I kind of want to go into housing too.
Yeah.
For the non-homeless,
Yeah.
um, rent prices are skyrocketing
Yeah.
right now. Um, Houses are becoming more unaffordable for people that are my age, whether that's due to bigger businesses,
Mhm.
corporations buying a lot of these spaces, or just
Yeah.
even the current overall economy. How do you plan to attack that as mayor?
So two pieces to that would be the renters piece and the home ownership piece. In 2021, the city of Minneapolis had a ballot measure around rent control that passed. And when we talk about rent stabilization, we talk about how the city passed the ballot measure in which neighbors wanted the city to pursue and explore a way we can implement this. And we got to do our job in doing that. We know we have to protect our renters. There are folks that bring up, well, St. Paul tried doing this, it didn't work out. My argument would be a few things. Number one, I believe St. Paul didn't work out because a whole host of issues from a nationwide building shortage to like inflation, on and on and on. But we could also learn from the mistakes of what happened in the past. And we can also build more affordable housing on top of that. When I say affordable, I mean people not having to spend more than a third of their rent on housing. And so rent stabilization is just one tool in the toolbox. And this kind of ties into the ownership piece because one thing we got to pursue also is TOPA, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, so that we can keep these properties in community hands, and which is something that the mayor did not support. And so one of the bigger issues we're having as well, and you laid it out well, very well, is that there is a large number of out-of-state entities from California and Atlanta and New York and Florida that are buying up large swaths of property.
Yeah.
And their intent and their goal isn't to keep people housed. Their intent isn't to keep rents low. Their intent and their motive is profits, to make more money.
Yeah.
And so we got to think about a way how we can keep our housing stock in the hands of, keep it locally owned.
For sure.
And I think that's critical. And also, we hear from folks that we need to create a pathway to home ownership too. At the state, we worked on something called the First Generation Home Buyer Assistance Program, which was huge, providing folks that were first generation home purchasers, first time home buyers, the opportunity to get assistance in doing so, and maybe educating folks better on the resources that are available as well. And I remember one story, and this goes back to the renters piece. I got reached out to by some tenants, I believe in Loring Park, and they were telling me about how they were living in pretty much subhuman conditions. When I went to visit it, the front door was broken. Anyone and everyone was walking in, which is a risk. When you walk in, the mailboxes on the side were all completely broken. So the folks that were living in the building had to go to the post office to get their mail, which is an inconvenience. There was black mold in the units and in the building. We had folks that are unhoused sleeping in the laundry room. Units in the summer didn't have AC and no heat in the winter. On and on and on.
Yeah.
They formed a tenant union, and they were fighting back. But the issue is that even when they won, it seems that and by the way, I believe it was owned by an out-of-state entity as well. It seemed that this property owner would rather eat the cost of the fine than do the right thing and provide the fixes for the people.
Right.
And so we need real enforcement with teeth,
Yeah.
in which we're protecting our tenants as well,
For
because
sure.
that's just not happening right now.
For sure. Quick adjustment.
Yes.
So you stay behind.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know that you're hoping to add to the minimum wage.
Yeah.
And that should hopefully in effect help people with affordability of rent and other things at the current climate that we're in. A big question that I kind of have for you is we've already seen a downturn in Minneapolis in terms of big business leaving because they can't afford the type of increases that we've already had on corporations, but even small businesses on the minimum wage current prices. I know for sure Apple has left Uptown. H&M, a lot of that block, even just on, I think that's Lake or Hennepin. I think that's Lake, but
Yeah.
a lot of that block, even we don't have a Nike store
Yeah.
in the downtown or Minneapolis area because of pricing, because of hourly wages. How do you expect for big businesses to want to pay for employees at 20 an hour, but also how do small businesses survive? Because I know that
Yeah.
we've experienced a lot with us being here since 2020. The prices have shifted
Yeah.
up on minimum wage, and we've obviously been cooperating with that. But now we're talking about an extra $5 hike
Yeah.
per hour.
Um,
And I don't see how we can necessarily survive paying for our employees like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What is kind of the workaround on that in your eyes?
Yep, and not just city. Actually, there was state level legislation that I supported that would have provided a statewide $20 an hour minimum wage. So there was a city approach and a state approach as well. You brought up Apple. I think Apple. I think the reason they stated in which they left was because of crime. They're saying that uh, their uh, their property was getting broken into, things were getting stolen,
Mhm,
and things like that. So I
mhm,
think they had a safety concern.
mhm.
But again, they are a $1 trillion
Right.
entity, and so I think they're going to be just fine.
Yep.
If we talk about wages, we talk about supporting small businesses in
Mhm.
those conversations. Those are conversations we can have, but
Yeah,
I think Apple will be. I think they'll be just fine.
for sure.
But these are some of the same conversations we were having when we were having the $15 an hour minimum wage
Mhm,
discussions in the past,
mhm.
in which we're saying businesses will flee, we'll lose everything. I think that the climate we're in around inflation is still an issue.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about both supporting small businesses, but also the workers.
Mhm.
If people can't afford groceries and rent, healthcare, on and on and on, uh, then it's going to be a whole lot more expensive providing the social services and support that they need
Mhm.
rather than just giving them a decent living wage.
For
And so
sure.
that's the kind of stuff we want to engage with. And by the way, when we provide a living wage for people, then not only are they able to support themselves, their family, those are also money. That's also money being spent in the local economy where they can shop.
Mhm.
In your shop, they can shop at the grocery store. They can shop locally and continue to generate and sustain the local economy. But if we have folks that are paid less than minimum wage, then spending gets cut short
Right.
locally. People are more heavily reliant on social services support from city, county, state.
For sure.
And so we want to make sure that we're setting up people for success and the workers for success, which is also why we wanted to support the Labor Standards Board, which the mayor vetoed, because these are the conversations we can have
Mhm.
around what are the facts around increasing not just wages,
Mhm.
but worker protections, and how do we also support small businesses
Yeah.
in a way in which when we're making decisions, how do we bring them in the decision making process?
Mhm.
I've had a business owner, for example, reach out to me saying that his business on Hennepin got shut down because of the construction that was occurring, and if he lost 80, 90% plus of the foot traffic, right? Couldn't keep up with the lease. And
Yeah.
not only was it his business, but it was his sole source of income for the
Mhm.
family. And so that's heartbreaking. That shouldn't be happening. And
Yeah.
if the city is going to be doing that, we got to engage them in the decision making process. This is what's going to happen. This is how long the project's going to be
Mhm.
taking. Maybe these are the grants we can provide for you in the short term. If the project goes beyond that, then this is how we can provide ongoing support.
Mhm.
I think those are the approaches that we need to take.
For sure. And so at least from what I'm understanding, the goal is that the more money that we give people working an hourly wage, at least on the minimum wage level, the more money that will be spent with smaller businesses, right?
Absolutely, it's good for everyone.
Yep,
Absolutely.
for sure.
And the what is, you know, the initiative that is being taken right now to help grow like the businesses that are more like art centered that help
Mm,
uplift like music artists, art
Yes.
painters, stuff like that. I forget what it's called. Do you remember what it's called?
I'm
It's
not
like a
sure.
grant that's given out.
Yes,
You
there is. Yes.
is I see that as a kind of a correlation with, minimum wage being increased and maybe big businesses leaving, but there's all these other businesses, maybe like ourselves and like a lot of the ones that have been
Yeah.
granted the grant or the lump sum of money to, get one of these empty storefronts in downtown,
Exactly.
decorate it nice, and now they can flourish their business to another level. And then now they can afford to pay 2, 3 more
Yeah.
employees this new minimum wage. Is that something that you plan to continue to do, to amplify, to highlight more up and coming businesses that are, within the creative field? Because I know we've talked a lot about community and a lot of the businesses that have gotten those grants or
Hmm.
lump sum of money, whatever it's called, they do a lot of stuff for the community. And I think if we keep highlighting businesses like that, that are local, that do stuff for community members, and
Yeah.
creativeness people in the city, it may continue to grow this place and become a tourist, destination. We don't necessarily need the big, box store type of brands to come in when we kind of have that creativeness in Minnesota or
We
Minneapolis, and it just needs to be
absolutely.
highlighted.
We have the people, we have the resources, we have the entrepreneurial spirit, we have the creativity, like you mentioned, and those are some things that we're speaking about on the campaign as well. Um, the vacant storefronts, especially like in downtown, how do we get more small businesses to attract them um, to engage with them to fill up those vacancies? How do we provide those ongoing support? Uh, Not only in the short term, but our vision also long term is how do we provide enough support so that we can create ownership so that you're not leasing these empty storefronts, but
Yeah.
also owning the property in which you're currently leasing or renting out. Um, how we provide more grants for creative stuff like arts, like you mentioned, like our musicians, our artists, our folks that also want to sell vintage clothing like you guys have out here and things like that. And so those are the things we're talking about on the campaign, and highlighting the small business support rather than these mega corporations that will do just fine.
Mhm.
A second piece to that also is that there are some um, office spaces that can be converted to housing. And in attracting small businesses, what I hear from folks is that they want an environment in which is more walkable, more accessible. If we have more people living downtown, also, that could be more prospective customers and people that could walk in and provide more foot traffic for our businesses as well. And so we got to provide the opportunity for downtown to flourish so that our businesses can succeed also.
Yeah, because if we can somewhat become more of like a tourist destination or a place where, you take a weekend or a week-long trip to Minneapolis or
Mm,
Minnesota, I think especially now with like cannabis becoming legalized, it's like a spot where, that was like a spot like when it first started, it was, oh, we'll go out there and, cannabis is legalized. It'll be a fun little getaway or whatever. And I think like we are on the verge of that. Our
yeah,
sports teams are getting a little bit better. Maybe
yeah,
people travel here to watch our sports teams.
yeah,
But I think like, the one thing we are missing is a very like walkable, shoppable downtown,
yeah,
and we don't, I think
definitely.
if there was more, businesses like you said, like us, or more artistic, more, one-off clothing brands that like to do their thing, or even like media companies like us and the other ones in town that, highlight local music, and when artists perform at the Armory or, at local First Ave venues, they can come, they have a spot to, walk in downtown within, drive the bus around the corner, and, we can build this energy in our city
Mhm.
of, when artists do come to town here, there is that hip hop lifestyle. There's that pop and R&B lifestyle in Minneapolis, and you know, it's cool when you go there. Oh, I know that business. Oh, I know that business. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, they started here. That's their flagship store.
Yep.
Stuff like that. That I
Yes.
think is starting to grow. And I would just like to continue to see that be a big
Absolutely.
effort because.
Absolutely. 100%. And that's why the connectiveness and the accessibility piece is really important. If you go downtown, you want to be able to walk around, you want to be able to bike, you want to be able to ride those Lime scooters. If you want to be able to ride the bus. And so the accessibility piece is extremely important as well for everyone. And that's the vision we also have
Yeah.
for downtown.
Yeah, because I have noticed a lot of businesses, including ourselves, like we'll get a storefront just outside of downtown or outside of the big
Mm,
popular areas because it's a lot cheaper, a
yes.
tenth of the price.
Yep.
But it makes people have to drive to get to you versus all the foot traffic,
Exactly.
and then it doesn't really build the image. Like all these businesses exist, but it doesn't build the image of it's all in downtown. But
Exactly.
yeah, like that.
So you were part of a very progressive campaign, also grassroots campaign. How much of your movement would you say comes from social media?
Um, I would say that social media is an important tool to engage folks, especially younger folks, and talk about the message that resonates with everyone. Uh, I would say, as a senator, what's been important to me is not just as a candidate, but as an elected official, continuing or maintaining constant communication with people in community, on social media, in the media, so that we're not only connected during campaign season, so people know what we're about, know that I remained consistent throughout
Yeah.
the time I've been in office, uh, speaking towards some of the successes we've had together,
Mhm.
some of the barriers and obstacles we've also faced, and I think continuing that as from a senator to a mayoral candidate
Yeah.
was a pretty easy transition because we've been trying to maintain that throughout the entire time. And so it's been a way in which people get to know who I am.
For sure.
And I remember when we launched, within the first day, we've had, I think, a little over 200 people sign up on the website to volunteer. Now we're over or close to, I think, 1,500 people. And so those are a lot of people that are energized, not just about the campaign, but want to put in the amount of volunteer support that help energize campaigns.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of videos go viral. Um, we've seen, but also people get up to date. Like when things happen, when there's like the DFL endorsement getting revoked, people wake up to that and they say, well, we got to knock more doors. We got a phone bank. And then
Yeah.
that also created that nationwide attention where we got picked up by CNN and MSNBC
For
and
sure.
all the other outlets in which we were able to share our message about of affordability and accountability and things like that. And so those are some of the successes that we've experienced.
Yeah, I did wanna ask you about that DFL endorsement, then reversal,
Yeah.
like how can something like that happen? Can you explain to our listeners like exactly what happened,
Mm.
at least from your point of view, your perspective, and how does our government or our governing group like the Democratic Party let something like that happen?
Yeah. And so, first, this is the first instance in which an endorsement had got revoked like this, right?
Mhm.
And so here we don't have a primary process. We have something called the DFL and caucuses
Mhm.
and the convention. The caucuses neighbors all come out to the local precincts, local neighborhoods,
Yep.
talk about candidates and issues they care about, vote on delegates. The delegates then go on to the convention from each precinct to support one candidate. And so on the caucus, we out-organized the incumbent. We brought out thousands of people, not just previous caucus goers, but people new to the process as well.
Mhm.
And so that was evident and visible when we won on the first ballot
Mhm.
at the convention. Uh, what's important to note also is that these efforts take a lot of volunteer support, a lot of hours. Uh, People taking hundreds, if not thousands, of hours to set up the caucus, set up the convention, make sure everything, the process is right.
Right.
Before the convention, there's something called the Rules Committee.
Mhm.
And the Rules Committee is made up of all the campaign, a few campaign surrogates, so everyone gets a person.
Mhm.
The mayor's campaign had one, the challengers had one, I had one, had some, we all had some, and then volunteers. And so the rules committee comes up with the rules for the convention and what that looks like. And so when it was decided upon, the mayor's team was also part of that decision about how the convention would look.
Mhm.
And so what we saw on convention day is that the mayor and his team realized quickly they didn't have the support in the audience and they were going to lose. And so they did everything they could to provide resolutions, install, and go to the microphone, install, hoping that time would expire and that the venue would shut down before we get to a process in which we can endorse someone. So they had all these delay tactics happen. It didn't work out. We got to have a vote on the first ballot. There were software issues that occurred, but I think maybe a little over 100 ballots or so that were not counted. But we had a process for that. We had a process in which the convention of parliamentarians said, this is what happened. How do we want to go about this? So the rules said, we're going to take it to the body, let the delegation, the audience decide what the next step will be.
Yeah.
So the audience said, we want to go to a second ballot regardless.
Okay.
We want to keep voting. And so that was part of the rules and they decided on that. Now, the mayor's team was upset about that and they staged a walkout thinking that they wanted to break quorum. They didn't know, they couldn't do the math to understand that they couldn't break quorum. And so they staged the walkout. That second ballot we won, which was going to happen regardless.
Yeah.
Because whether it was a second, third, fourth ballot, we were going to walk away with a victory that day. And so that happened. The park board races occurred. The park board races endorsements happened with the same exact process. And so later on, we knew that it ruffled feathers. And so there was a video that came out that showed one of the mayor's allies in a PAC meeting saying that we have a whole bunch of donations from wealthy donors and we cannot cash it unless we take away the endorsement from Omar. And so no matter what they're saying in the media about, well, the process was not fair, it was basically they caved to wealthy donors and the mayor had him and his allies work in the CBRC, Constitutional Bylaw Rules Committee, which was a state-level party, 28 members, mostly out of Minneapolis, that were his allies, voted to revoke that. And they made that decision way in advance.
Yeah.
And so it was a process in which the state folks that had no business in Minneapolis politics made that decision, and also in which they caved to wealthy donors.
Yeah.
And so what we saw after that was that it actually backfired. Members of the community, residents saw that that was an injustice that occurred. And we saw a spike in people signing up to volunteer, a spike in door knocking and phone banking. I think that following weekend, we had hundreds of people show up to the next door knock. And so a lot of people got energized by this.
Yeah.
And so despite what the mayor and its team tried to sell in their narrative, people know that it was an injustice. In fact, one of the board members that voted to revoke the endorsement was one of the chief complainants, someone that submitted a complaint. She then realized, oh, I can't vote to revoke it if it's a conflict of interest if I submitted a complaint. So she removed her complaint and then voted to remove it, right? And so those are the kind of games that were occurring.
Yeah, I mean, very unprecedented, as you kind of said before.
It was because two things, and I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
I apologize. Two things. Number one, it was the first instance in which it got revoked. But number two, in the last 80 plus years since the party's founding, we never had a challenger defeat an incumbent in a mayoral endorsement. This is the first time it ever happened. And so we made history in doing that, and we know that upset some of those folks.
For sure.
It's like it gave more light onto, even you just running for mayor, probably. Like just all like the news of you getting revoked probably hit some people's phones that didn't even see that you were endorsed. Like it's just a whole nother rerun of promotion of your name coming across someone's phone, most likely.
Absolutely. And one of the main benefits of the DFL endorsement is name recognition, right? And so one of the unintended consequences of their actions is that we got the benefit of getting the endorsement, name recognition, but then even more name recognition after it got taken away too. So we got 2 bites of the recognition apple, pretty much.
And so you said that a lot of things kind of took off in terms of national coverage because of that situation. Did you expect any of that national recognition for this kind of event that took place? I mean, it's an injustice. I mean, you can't just give somebody a spot then pull it back. And
Yeah.
I can imagine from what you're saying, the 100 votes wouldn't have technically changed anything, right?
No, in fact, I know if we believe with the breakdown of the votes, if they were disseminated the way it was supposed to,
Mhm.
it would have been the same kind of allotment that we've seen with the other ballots as well.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have made a difference at all. It would have been the same situation. Again, whether second, third, or fourth
Mhm.
ballot, we would have gotten endorsed. And so that's what we believe. But I would say this, that I suspected that locally people would be upset because we knocked a hell of a lot of doors. We've spoken to our neighbors. We know what our city stands for, and then we knew that they would believe that this was an injustice.
Mhm.
But I did not anticipate that it would go nationally.
Mhm.
Part of the way it went nationally also was there was a lot of right wing hate, folks from like Lauren Boebert and Charlie Kirk and like
Mhm.
and other right wing media outlets that were saying some nasty racist Islamophobic stuff that came with that also. That coupled with the revocation, because I suspect that they've seen what happened
Yeah.
throughout the process as well, and that kind of catapulted our name to be out there more as well.
For sure. And I mean, on the topic of the far right influencers kind of adding into the mix after the endorsement and things like that. I just want to know. I know you have to have like a tough skin in politics, and you kind of have to be able to deflect a lot of the things that
Yeah.
people say, but how do those statements make you feel? Because I have seen like where they try and put like pictures of you and Ilhan together, and then they're just saying crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Like Twitter's a whole new space nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I did see like the tweet of Charlie Kirk, even saying things about you that are xenophobic, Islamophobic, racist. How do these things like make you feel? Like you're a human at the end of the day, like you are a human.
Yeah.
How like how do you process these things?
Well, we know that the words that you use matter, and it's unfortunate that a lot of this got fed into by the mayor's team and the PACs that are supporting him. He has 3 PACs, well-funded, $1 million plus, that are supporting his campaign, that have promoted this idea of like, we can't trust this guy. This guy being the Somali mayoral Muslim candidate, right? And so that kind of stuff feeds into or pairs with some of the right wing hate that we've been seeing. In fact, one of the mayor's team, after the DFL endorsement happened, said this was an act of brazen cheating, which was obviously not, right? But guess what? That got picked up by the right wing media
Yeah.
and saying, see, these Somalis are cheating, this Muslim candidate is cheating, all this stuff. And so it's really unfortunate that we have Democrats, the mayor, his team, his PACs, that are forming this indirect alliance with, and I believe intentionally, with these right wing,
Yeah.
with this right wing kind of attacks to protect their own power, because they can't run on substance. They know that they can't win on the merits. The last 8 years, 2 terms, he's failed on police accountability, public safety, that system that works for everyone, on how we address our unhoused neighbors. I can go on, and labor. I can go on and on and on. He can't talk about that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why we're seeing some of these attacks happen. In fact, there was a leak that came out on social media of one of the PAC meetings saying that the path to defeat Omar isn't on the substance. It's we have to paint him as corrupt and you can't trust him. And the video's out there and saying we have to label him as not being trustworthy. We have to paint him in this way so that people sour on him. And so it's not us saying that, it's them literally saying that on camera, that that's their strategy to do that and to rile up people and get them upset.
Yeah. And I know that I've seen, especially we watch a lot of YouTube. So I know I've seen a lot of these ads that are coming from what it seems like the Democratic Party, kind of like you just said, falling in line with these far right ideologies. one of the big ones that I am seeing more recently is the fraud, just like you kind of said, kind of adding into the fraud. And I know that I just saw a story from NPR speaking on there may have been a person in the Feed Our Futures kind of like scam, which was pretty big nationally, that had donated to your account or to your campaign. And from what they've also said, you guys returned that. But how does that, I can see how maybe they might make those fraud accusations out of something like that, but how does even a donation like that come to you?
Yeah, so we have ways that people donate online. So without engaging with people, for example, in general, say I never met you, you can be, I support this candidate, I'm going to go online, I'm going to donate on his website. That happens with many thousands of donors that we have. But I want to speak to the food program piece because I think that's really important. The Feeding Our Future situation was heartbreaking because these were providers that we believed and everyone believed was providing not just services but meals for kids during the COVID-19 pandemic that we thought otherwise would have gone hungry. And so as a legislator, it's important when constituents or community members come to you saying that there's injustice happening in which, for example, the program wasn't paying or there's stop payments or pause, that there's acts of discrimination because this is directly impacting kids of color, right? And that's the message that was sold to us legislators. On the other side, we had the state saying that, and they said this multiple times to me in meetings, there's no reason to suspect fraud, but we're worried about the program growth and how much it costs us, right? And so one side is telling me there's no fraud. The other side is saying that there's discrimination. As a person of color that's representing community, of course, I have to use the best information and say, well, something's not right here. Now, as a legislator, I cannot and I never have directly advocated for individual providers or even the program as a whole, but we have to ask questions about why this is happening, right? And that's the approach we took. Now, later on, we did find out that there were bad actors and that we had to return donations from them. But it's funny that this side is talking about us when in reality, for example, the mayor, when he was meeting with the state, took talking points from the head of Feeding Our Future to engage with the state, So to us, that's a little bit more of a deeper level than anything else. And so, but obviously, they're not going to talk about that. But that to me speaks to the larger issue of rather than having middlemen, rather than funding nonprofits that provide services to families, we just got to provide families with the services they need directly from government. Provide them with the money, provide them with the ability to put food on the table. And if there was no middleman in the first place, if we just had the government provide those direct services, as I believe government should, none of this would have happened in the first place.
For sure. For sure. So this is just me playing devil's advocate a little bit. Why don't you fight fire with fire? Why aren't you putting money into ads to, slander a name over things that aren't necessarily true in the way that people see it?
Because what I'm seeing is that from so far, even on the doors, that people get turned off by those kind of attacks. And it also ties back to our conversation why connection to community is really important because the last 5 years, not just in South Minneapolis, but throughout Minneapolis, I worked hard to engage with people, bringing them in the legislative process, talking to them about issues that affect them, getting to know people on a personal level so that when people engage with me, they know who I am. And so when these attack ads come out, they say, actually, no, I know him. That's not true at all. If I was just a legislator that was disconnected, takes the same as Mayor Fry's approach, where it's just my way, the highway, not being rooted in community, it would be easy for those attacks to stick and as a direct result be harmed. But the reason why we have data that we know we're leading in early voting, for example, why we won the DFL endorsement, is because these attacks don't work because I worked really hard to engage with the community and people know who I am. And they know that all these attacks are false. And so we stick to the substance and we stick with this is the vision for the city and give people a reason to vote for something and not against something. And so that's the approach we've been taking throughout the time.
Yeah. And so in your campaign, I've seen you get a lot of comparisons to Zohran Mamdani in New York. He's also running for mayor in New York City, one of the largest cities in the world. Do you know him well? And do you believe that you guys have things in common in terms of how you guys are running, the policies that you guys stand for, or are there like a lot of differences?
Oh yeah, we know each other, and I think we got elected around the same time.
Wow.
Engaged with each other. There were some issues, national issues, that we connected on in the past as well. And also, when he was first running for mayor, we spoke on the phone about that kind of his campaign, my campaign, and what we're seeing with that race, with our race, with races across the country, is that people want authentic leadership, authentic candidates that speak to the issues of working people and the voices of people that have historically been left out. But what we see in Minneapolis, that we've not only saw ourselves but hear from residents, is right now it seems like there's a tale of two cities: one for the wealthy and the well-connected, and then the rest of everyone else. Again, the immigrants, the renters, the small businesses, the young people, seniors, and then the wealthy and the well-connected, they get the access, the priorities, the promises, and then the rest of us get what? The broken promises and the vetoes. And so folks are fed up with the broken promises and the vetoes, and they want someone that will directly engage with people and speak to the needs of the working class families and all residents, and not just representing the wealthy and the well-connected. And I think that we're seeing that nationwide.
For sure. For sure. Well, I think that's about all I have for today. I really am thankful that you came here today, and gave us a piece of conversation that we could have with you. Thank you so much. Again, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
We really do appreciate it. November 4th, make sure you get out there, you go and vote. Everyone needs to vote, man. If you can, please do. You at least have heard here first from Omar what he stands on, what he believes in, and some of the things too that might be controversial, but he's been here open and honest and ready to answer at least about that. So again, we appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And one last thing.
Yes.
Early voting started. It started September 19th.
Yes, sir.
So people can go out and vote right now at 980 East Hennepin Avenue. And so it's Monday through Friday. I believe the hours are 8 to 6 now. And then they're going to start opening on weekends this weekend. So folks, if you don't have time on election day, please go out and vote today.
I got one final question.
Yeah.
Who's your top 3 rappers in Minnesota?
Ooh. Top 3 Minnesota rappers. You're going to stump me. Well, can I say artists in general?
Sure, yeah.
So I know that we did a program with the Gully Boys at Ice House recently. There's 2 East African rappers, one named Ilka Ase and another one who does more of like a R&B type, is Del Mariette also. So I'll say those are the few.
Are you familiar, I guess in slow follow-up, are you familiar with like any of the like I guess like hip hop or like rap culture in Minneapolis and kind of where it's like stemmed from and brewing from? Because I feel like that also is like something that's very like community oriented, and I don't know, if I feel like if a politician was kind of like cool with that scene, it would probably sit well with a lot of people in that scene or whatever.
It would, yeah. I would say that when I've spoken to folks, I'm still learning more about the local rap and music scene, but I've been connected to more like the local artists in terms of like art and in terms of spoken word and things like that, more so than the music scene. But I'm more than happy to learn and willing to get educated more on the local rap scene.
Cool. Yeah, we'll definitely let you know a little bit more about it.
Please, absolutely.
You know, because I'd say, I mean, you being a Somali American, that was like some of the biggest rappers that have came out of Minnesota have been Somali. ZR, Lil Mo, and so many more I could name off. And even Tommy G, who's a YouTuber, came to Minnesota and kind of highlighted their whole scene, kind of the history of what's happened here, and a little bit more of like just like what life is like being in Minneapolis and whatnot. So I guess I was curious if you have communicated with anyone in that community or have learned anything about it and whatnot. But I think it would be something cool for the mayor or senator to be involved in.
Absolutely, and I think that's critical to make happen. And I've been a hip hop fan since I was a kid, for a long time. I think the first album I ever bought was back in high school was TM 101. It was Young Jeezy, yeah.
Wow.
And so I think that was the first one, yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so yeah, a long time. He's actually one of probably my favorite rapper growing up.
Really?
Too. Yeah.
No, that's not a bad choice at all, right there.
Yes.
For sure.
Cool.
For sure.
Yeah, that's all I got then.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Senator Fateh. 1521 Como Avenue Southeast. That's the shop. Come shop when you got some free time. We would appreciate it. Good luck on the rest of the campaign. I know we're counting down. Days are counting down now at this point.
Yes.
But yeah, we wish you the best of luck,
and
we hope to see you again here in the future.
And I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Peace.